Welcome back to the deep dive. We're tackling a stack of source material today that promises to take us on quite a wild ride.
Yeah, we've got transcript excerpts from the first 10 tracks of the album Nonsense by Doza Crew.
Exactly.
hmm
And it sounds like it really lives up to its name.
It seems to be an invitation into a very specific world, crafted through lyrics that really challenge expectation.
So our mission in this deep dive is to analyze each of these tracks, in detail. Try and uncover the striking insights, the themes underneath what Doza Crew presents as, well, an exploration of the absurd.
Right, we're trying to see what's actually being built inside this nonsense.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's dive in.
So the album kicks off with tracks 01, Welcome and Welcome.
Yeah.
And wow, they absolutely waste no time setting the stage. The lyrics just immediately plunge you into this bizarre landscape.
Exactly. There's no gentle intro. You're just hit with these immediate, impossible images, like wounds that can play the piano.
Right. Cats playing chess perfectly, invisible friends who apparently genuinely exist. It's almost a sensory overload of the illogical.
It is, and it just keeps escalating. You've got walls whispering, cows writing poems, sugar rings falling from the sky.
Time itself becomes, like, dependent on the color of your socks.
Yeah.
Paper airplanes flying intercontinentally. It's relentless, this list of absurdities.
And I think it's more than just quirky weirdness, right? The track uses the phrase, hört wie der Wahnsinn einzieht, hear how madness moves in. And that image of Köpfe kollabieren, heads collapsing, it suggests the nonsense isn't just there. It's like an invading force, something actively entering and changing reality.
Yeah, they pile on more, too. Beavers dancing better than humans, wild ducks flying, like clapping, whatever that even means.
Unicorn clapping causes rainbows.
Yeah.
Invisible giraffes just living among us, apparently.
Scientists cracking blue milk, chickens on skateboards, trends going to other dimensions. It's nonstop.
And then you got those purely nonsensical statements that just break logic, like kalte Birken schmecken warm besser als lecker.
Cold rolls taste warm better than delicious. Makes no sense.
Or blau ist grüner als gelb. Blue is greener than yellow. They're actively, like, reveling in the illogic.
And that repeated refrain really drives it home. Alle hören jetzt Blödsinn, and alle hören jetzt Blödsinn. Everyone listen to nonsense. Everyone is listening to nonsense. It's like an instruction and a statement of fact.
So the core insight from this opening track, I mean, it functions as this immediate immersion, right? A declaration of intent. It establishes absurdity not just as some random thing, but as a pervasive state of being that's actively entering perception.
Yeah, madness moves in.
Exactly. It challenges you, the listener, from the very first moment to just accept or grapple with this completely new reality.
Okay, so after that really intense welcome, track 02 is Schallzeit, which translates roughly to sound time or maybe resonance time. The title itself kind of hints at a shift, and the lyrics definitely give off a different vibe.
Yeah, the tone changes quite significantly here. You get imagery like dark clouds, a cooling silence, a breeze carrying stillness.
Eyes sparkling in twilight, nerves tightening. There's whispering mentioned, a sense of tension, a murmuring of unease. Like something's about to happen.
Something is approaching, yeah. A spectacle, it says, described as a picture that's clear but also full of night. And there's mention of fate and mystery leading someone awake from darkness.
It really does paint a scene, like being in a room, maybe an auditorium, where something important is about to unfold. There's a speaker who steps forward. The audience freezes.
And their words hit hard as if truth bites, the lyrics say.
Yeah.
And the speaker's gaze penetrates the crowd. Their voice sounds knowledgeable, which is interesting, but it also raises doubts.
Right.
And right in the middle of this charged atmosphere, you hear the phrase, pure absurdité.
Pure absurdity.
Yeah, echoing. It's like absurdity isn't just out there anymore. It's entering this moment where someone's trying to find truth or clarity, and it creates this crack in reason.
Then there's a sudden silence, followed by this tearing call, burning hope amidst staggering, an imagery of chess pieces chasing through ranks, chaos taking hold without regard for reason.
So if track 1 introduces the presence of absurdity, track 2 feels more like it's exploring the experience of living with it or maybe reacting to it. The insight here, I think, is how pure absurdity can destabilize attempts to understand or find truth. You know, that knowledgeable voice raising doubts, the words that bite, that echoing pure absurdity. It suggests that in this world, even trying to be reasonable can be undermined. It leads to staggering, to chaos overriding any kind of structure.
Okay, moving on. Track 03 is called Ode. And this one, It feels like it takes the world from track 1 and the tension from track 2 and just blows it wide open, amplifies everything.
It absolutely does. We see a return to some of the familiar nonsensical bits, the two invisibles meeting, the glass ball thing.
The last me Akman's Fensterline, yeah.
Right. Kulturbrücken. Blow Scruner as Gelb, the flat earth idea. It's like reinforcing that established bizarre reality.
But what's really fascinating here, I thought, was the inclusion of the audience. The lyrics describe, das Publikum jetzt völlig aus in einem interaktischen Freudenrausch mit Absurditäten absolut genial.
The audience freaking out in an interactive frenzy of joy.
Yeah, that adds a whole new layer. The nonsense isn't just a state of being. It's like a performance or a shared experience that people are reacting to really strongly and joyfully.
And the list of absurdities just keeps expanding. Trees training people, the Milky Way as an alien roller coaster on comets.
Giraffes breathing underwater, penguins bathing on rainbows, the moon made of cheese with dancing mouse colonies. It gets more cosmic, almost more whimsical.
And the audience reaction escalates right along with it. Intergalactic frenzy, it says.
But here's where the track really broadens its scope. It starts weaving in some pretty sharp societal and political critique, but it's filtered through the absurdity.
Right, like politicians are honest while pigs are sprinting over clouds.
Dogs and swine have jobs while people are lazy. Clowns rule the world and instruct consultants. Money is just a printed illusion. Paying pensions is described as bizarre.
And the critique of the financial system is especially vivid, isn't it? Beavers controlling monopolies, squeezing profits.
While workers climb skyscrapers and the profits go to glittering helmets, stock markets breaking, kites laughing in the ruins.
Banks popping up like mushrooms while beavers splash kids in the banks. The whole financial market just burns itself down. Ashes, no way back.
Money is puppet dust. The economy hangs on desert robbery. It's brutal.
And the audience reaction keeps getting mentioned, more intense each time. And that phrase about madness evolves too. Der Wahnsinn wird international, madness becomes international, or maybe bleibt der Wahnsinn, weil es keiner mehr treibt, madness remains because nobody can bear it anymore.
So what's the takeaway from Ode? It feels huge.
I think the key insight from Ode is how Doza Crew uses this amplified absurdity, plus that depicted audience enthusiasm, to deliver some really biting social critique.
Yeah.
The absurdity becomes the lens, right? It suggests that maybe systems like politics and finance are inherently illogical, so disconnected from reality that they're basically indistinguishable from pure nonsense.
And the cheering audience suggests maybe people feel that.
Did that
resonates.
Perhaps. That it reflects a felt truth about how broken or ridiculous things seem, and that ending imagery reality turning to ashes, the system breaking down, but then new worlds growing from the rubble. It suggests that maybe confronting this absurd breakdown is actually a necessary step, even if the truth gets twisted by all dimensions in the process.
Okay. Track 04, Absurd Whispering. This excerpt is really short, just a few words.
Yeah, we just see fragments echoing earlier things, better as Ms.
The title and the brevity kind of suggest it might be less about lyrical content and more about the sound or the atmosphere.
Yeah, like the background noise of absurdity? Exactly. Capturing that indistinct echo of the pervasive absurdity from the earlier tracks, just the sound of nonsense sort of lingering.
Right. Then Track 05, Sieger, which means victor or winner. After the huge scale of Ode, this feels like a shift. More personal, maybe, but still completely strange.
It starts with those quirky character descriptions again. Elegant like an elephant in porcelain. The guy with two right arms. An unrestrained, unique specimen. So it's immediately focusing on individuals who are odd.
And then you get that really jarringly mundane line, Guten Morgen, mein kleiner Sonnenschein. Just a normal greeting.
Yeah, paired with walking step by step every day an adventure. It's like dropping the ordinary right into the middle of the eccentricity.
But then the tone just shifts completely. There's this fragmented, kind of confused first-person bit. Hey, folks, I don't know, on the way home last night was still quite a rumble and stuff. Did you hear anything and stuff? No idea, must have won or something.
Yeah, somehow wie Lock and Cuff, and so lass mich wissen, wenn was gehört. A rumble, a hole in the head, and this confused sense of having won something. What did he win?
Exactly. And then it gets more confrontational. Sie so sehen Sie, so Sie also the buffer. See them like that, you victim. And then it ends with this mundane complaint about having a hangover because he annoyed people.
So what's the insight here? That title, Sieger, feels deeply ironic. The lyrics show a winner who's confused, possibly hurt, hole in the head, kind of aggressive, and nursing a hangover.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like much of a win.
Right. This track seems to bring the experience of this nonsense world right down to a personal level. Winning in this reality isn't glorious. It might just mean you survived some chaotic rumble and came out the other side confused, maybe injured, dealing with the messy consequences. It's absurdity hitting individual experience.
Okay, track 06, Flugschar, Plowshare. Like track 4, this excerpt is super brief, very fragmented.
We really only get a few distinct words. Meisterstück, probably masterpiece.
Thomas BR, maybe Kommissar, like police or commissar.
Seems likely. Then Verloren Lost, and St. Hal, which could be part of Stall, Steel, or maybe Stillhalten, Hold Still.
It's tough to build a narrative from just that. What do you make of those fragments together?
Well, with so little context, it's hard to say for sure, but putting masterpiece, commissar, and lost close together, it's potent, isn't it? It could hint at, the failure or destruction of something important, maybe under some kind of authority resulting in loss. Or they could just be unrelated bits floating in the absurd world. But the title Plowshare, that suggests turning over the ground, upheaval, maybe destruction that leaves only fragments behind.
Interesting. Okay, track 07, Nacht. Likely a stylized Nacht or night. This track brings back more detailed imagery, but the atmosphere feels much, much darker than before.
You feel that shift immediately. It's about being under the stars, dancing, but the only shelter is the fireland. Eyes sparkle in twilight, but these are dark hours. There's a really strong sense of group identity and isolation. Only us here, no turning back, remaining stubborn.
The sound imagery is intense, too, quite violent. Storm winds howling like Kiesgeschrei, chalk screaming, guitars screaming, every beat shattering the world.
And the personal impact sounds visceral. Our soul with treacherous light, broken ground, blood screaming like an old wound reopening. This idea of being swept away by fire, drinking into the depths of nothingness before the sun comes up, it's pretty bleak.
Yet even with all that darkness, there's this powerful sense of persistence, isn't there?
Wow.
Darkness terrifies, it says, but their will remains. Their shadows driven through every hell.
That resilience is really captured in those key lines. In dieser Nacht kein Ende in sich unser Herz glüht fanatischer Licht. In this night, no end in itself. Our heart glows fanatically.
Fanatically, wow.
And Kack und Rau, doch wir geben nicht auf, wenn in diesem Chaos wir in es Felllauf fit. Shit and rough, but we don't give up when in this chaos we fit into our course. They find a way to fit within the chaos itself.
But the ending is stark. Ashes fall like a black path. No coming from this misfortune.
Nacht offers, I think, a profound insight into how one might respond to all this. After the invading absurdity, the tension, the critical breakdown, the personal confusion, this track suggests one response isn't trying to escape, but finding resilience and identity within the darkness and chaos.
Like embracing it.
Almost. A defiant embrace of the struggle driven through every hell, where belonging and purpose, our course, our heart glows fanatically, are forged not despite the breakdown, but maybe by fitting into it. It's a dark, determined kind of persistence.
Okay, track 08, Downgrade. The title feels ironic because this track feels like a core statement about what the whole album is doing. It speaks directly to the audience again.
Yes, it opens right up with that direct address. Meine Damen und Herren, hochverehrtes Publikum, versammelt euch, denn jetzt wird's interessant lachen und staunen doch an, nehmt es nicht so ernst, denn ich sag euch, die Wahrheit ist komplex. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round. Now it gets interesting. Laugh and marvel, but don't take it too seriously because truth is complex. It's like laying out the rules of the game up front.
And there's that contrast again. Seeing the sky and eyes, but not knowing how to believe? Then we're back into this huge list of absurdities, mixing familiar ones, like the moon being cheese, with new ones.
We get matrons controlling the internet, dogs telling poetry, unicorns are just misunderstood wet donkeys.
Ocean heads crying only at night, fish dreaming of circuses, men flying with aluminum foil hats.
Stars are holes because tradition says so. The earth is hollow with dragons inside. The cows dancing tango are back.
Squids dreaming of bubble clouds, seals speaking 3 languages, geometry is steep and straight, cream clouds, penguins ruling the South Pole. It's like a greatest hits of the absurd, plus more.
And again, the audience reaction is noted, looking crazy, furrowed brows, maybe anger, but the speaker just grins back. There are lines about the earth being a disc, bananas helping with sorrow, Siri never lying.
And then comes that really explicit statement. Und du lachst so, wie ich denn dir wissen, das ist Sati. Und du lachst ganz verliebt, denn in Humor ist unser Elixir.
And you laugh like me because you know that is satire, and you laugh completely in love because in humor is our elixir.
Followed by the crucial line, Die Wahrheit versteckt sich in jedem Scherz. The truth hides in every joke.
Wow. So the core insight of this track is basically that the album's overwhelming nonsense is deliberate satire. It's a vehicle for complex truth, and humor is the key to unlocking it. It just states the purpose outright.
Exactly. And it connects the external absurdity to our internal reality by saying, Ihr fragt mich was, ist all doch lasst mich euch erklären. Jede Illusion, jede Fantasie ist ein Spiegel unserer Seelen. Every illusion, every fantasy is a mirror of our souls.
So the absurd world out there reflects something inside us.
Yeah, and the track finishes with these really powerful, complex ideas. No anger, no fear, it's just a game. Truth is complex, never still. The world's a theater. Madness mirrors us. We need to understand chaos and order together.
And it even offers that conflicting perspective. Madness rules hearts, but isn't the mind often its antagonist? Chaos rules, yet they laugh loudly in an empty world.
That ending imagery is intense, too. Voices echoing, truth dancing, madness waking. Shadows whispering that orders the true taboo. The mind fights, but the soul jumps into the abyss where only madness sings.
This track really reframes everything we've heard so far. The insight is that the album's downgrade into seeming nonsense isn't a collapse of meaning at all, but it's the intentional path towards a complex truth. The external absurd world is a mirror for our internal selves, and humor and satire are the tools needed to see it. And maybe the deepest revelation is that imposed order is the real restriction, and embracing that chaotic abyss is where the soul actually finds its voice.
It completely changes how you hear the earlier tracks.
Absolutely. It gives context to all that chaos, the critique, the dark persistence.
Okay, so after that huge philosophical revelation in track 8, track 9 is Die Wut erwacht, the anger awakens. And this feels like such a sudden, forceful shift in tone and energy.
It's a completely different vibe, yeah. It moves from that internal reflection about truth and satire to external action, to protest. The imagery is all about collective anger and resistance. Streets glowing from anger, fists raised. Every step feels like a dawn.
People know dreams, it says, but the truth stays hidden. Time is imperfect.
And the core message is stated almost like a manifesto. Wir stehen auf die Stimme, laut die Wut in uns erwacht für eine bessere Welt. Wir gewinnen diesen Kampf. We stand up, the voice loud, the anger awakens in us for a better world. We win this fight. It's a direct call to arms, really.
The call for collective action is really strong. Hands to the sky, every fist up, hearts beating for justice and freedom, no one packaged anymore, walls opening, hands becoming equal, fetters breaking.
And they explicitly identify who they're up against. Und während sie sich schon am Profitmachtgewier, sind wir die Gegenwelle drauf und aber wild. While they indulge in profit and power, we are the counterwave, wild on top.
That directly connects the anger back to the critique of the systems we saw hinted at way back in track 3.
Exactly. And the city itself becomes part of this uprising. Blocks are testimony, walls get graffitied. The metropolis is awakening and healing in people's hearts.
And that core message, standing up, fighting for a better world, gets repeated, really cementing its importance for this track.
So the insight here, I think, is that this track represents an active emotional response to the reality they've been describing, the pervasive absurdity, the critique of broken systems. It culminates here in awakened anger and a collective demand for actual change.
It's like the point where just observing or enduring flips into confrontation.
Right. It's where passive experience or even that dark resilience turns into direct confrontation and maybe hope for a better world. But it also raises the question, doesn't it? Is this anger a productive force leading somewhere positive, or is it just another manifestation of the chaos and madness described earlier?
That's a good question. Okay, finally, in these excerpts, we end with track 10, Verwirrte confused thoughts. And this track makes another really abrupt turn, back to seemingly random, almost childlike little vignettes.
It's such a stark contrast to the intense, focused energy of Die Wut erwacht, isn't it? We're suddenly back to these short, disconnected scenes. A mushroom in the forest, a deer comes and drinks.
A cookie goes around the corner, falls down, breaks a crumb in two, two flies are in the air, one calls out, "Attention, there comes Ub," but gets cut off.
A snail runs around the corner and steps on a cookie. They feel like snippets from a dream or just pure non sequiturs.
They really do. What's the effect of ending this sequence like that?
Well, it offers an interesting final insight for this block of tracks. After this whole journey through the absurdity, the critique, the resilience, the big philosophical statement about satire, and then culminating in that act of anger and call for change, the album ends this section, or at least pauses, with confused thoughts. It could suggest that even after you awaken the anger, even when you're seeking fundamental change, The mind still processes reality in these fragmented, bizarre ways. Maybe it implies the underlying absurdity isn't necessarily solved by resistance, it remains a fundamental part of how we perceive things. Perhaps it's even a space the mind retreats to sometimes. It ends this sequence on a note of persistent, fragmented, almost innocent seeming weirdness.
So pulling back then and looking at this journey through the first 10 tracks of Nonsense, it seems Dozakru uses this pervasive absurdity as a really deliberate tool.
Absolutely. We see it established as this invading force, then explored in how it unsettles clarity. It's amplified to become a lens for sharp societal critique, and then finally revealed as the hiding place for a complex truth that you can only really access through humor and satire.
And the album seems to map out all these different emotional responses too. The unease you feel when you first encounter this reality.
Right, or the frenzied joy some people seem to find embracing it, like that audience in Ode. Then there's the dark resilience you need to just survive within it, like in Nacht.
And finally, the anger that awakens in response to its systemic failures in Die Wutterwacht.
And there are those glimpses of individual experience tangled up in the chaos, like the winner in track 5, and these overarching themes of collapse, but also potential rebuilding, finding meaning not despite the breakdown, but maybe because of it, or even within it somehow.
And the way it uses those really specific, bizarre images, the dancing cows, the cheese moon, politicians as pigs, the beavers controlling banks, it's so effective. Why do you think those particular mashups stick with you?
I think it's because they take elements we associate with order or power or just the mundane things like finance, politics, basic physics, even breakfast rolls, and they smash them together with the utterly illogical in a way that's both really jarring and darkly humorous. They create these potent, memorable symbols for that feeling that the systems running our lives are fundamentally nonsensical or maybe corrupt. It just makes the critique really sticky.
It certainly does. This has been a really fascinating deep dive into just the start of Nonsense. The lyrics really challenge you to look at reality and our systems and maybe ourselves through this distorted, absurd mirror.
They propose that truth isn't simple or straightforward, but complex, often hidden in places we might not expect, like inside a joke or an illusion.
So considering how these lyrics use such extreme absurdity and satire to comment on society and individual experience, what does that tell us about finding meaning or maybe expressing critique in a world that often feels overwhelming or nonsensical itself? It really raises an important question for you, the listener. Where do you see the line between absurdity and reality in the world around you?